What's up with everybody? It's your Memorial B.
And Nicole.
And we're back here with some more reaction videos. So this is another special video request from Matthew Van. Matthew Man wants to check out do modern Spanish and Portuguese people have North African or Arab blood. Do they? It could be a combination of both.
I bet there's some,
you know.
yeah.
Yes, it's definitely going to be pretty interesting to find out.
Some more information.
Let's say thank you for your support.
Yes, thank you.
And we finna dive right into it.
The Iberian Peninsula has had one of the most tumultuous...
You hear pretty good?
Barely, but I'll be okay.
Oh.
Okay, don't make it too high for you.
Tumultuous and volatile. The Iberian Peninsula has had one of the most tumultuous and volatile histories of any region in Europe, and artifacts from that time period can be seen in the architecture, language, and even people that inhabit the modern-day countries today.
The area
was ground zero for the largest and most successful full-scale invasion of the European continent by North African forces, and this conquest and 700-year occupation was possibly the second most influential event to impact the European Mediterranean region after the rise of the Roman Empire. The various invasions and migrations in the Iberian countries have had a huge impact on the countries of Spain and Portugal, and in turn has had an even larger impact on many regions of the globe that the two have invaded and colonized, including two whole continents. So it's important to learn about the root of the Spanish and Portuguese people. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire around 400 AD, there emerged a large power vacuum in the former Roman provinces in Iberia, being filled shortly thereafter with groups like the Visigoths and the Germanic Vandals, who also went on to conquer parts of North Africa as well. Various European groups from all over Europe had been mixing and interacting in the Iberian Peninsula for about 300 years until one of the biggest shifts in European demography was initiated with the rising tide of Islamic expansion. For reference on just how rapidly the Islamic faith spread after its birth in Arabia in the year 610 AD, it would take only 100 years for the Umayyad Caliphate, the largest of the Islamic empires, to completely sweep the Iberian Peninsula. The last time mainland Europe had been invaded by Africans being the Punic Wars, where the Empire of Carthage attempted to conquer the Roman Republic. The Iberian Moors remained in the region for the next 700 years, and despite their name, were not an ethnically homogeneous group, being comprised of various Muslim people groups from all over the Middle East and North Africa. The bulk of the invading Moorish forces were comprised of the native North African converts to Islam, such as the many Berber peoples, while a smaller number were either Egyptian, Arab, or other Semitic peoples. They were, for the most part, united in their use of the Arabic language and adherence to Islam, as well as their objective of pushing Islam into the heart of Europe in an attempt to possibly convert the entire continent. Their seemingly unstoppable expansion was finally halted in the year 732 AD at the Battle of Tours, which took place a meager 150 miles away from the city of Paris. So it's very possible that if this battle had been lost, Muslim forces would have converted the bulk of the population of southern France into another Muslim nation. Although the North African Moors did have a very large impact on the genetics of the Iberian Peninsula, they didn't change it entirely, and the majority of the pre-invasion Christian Latin-speaking groups remained in the occupied area, with some either converting to Islam to better integrate into the society, while some retained their Christian and Latin heritage. In the ensuing 700 years, the various North African, Middle Eastern, Italic, Iberian, and Germanic peoples coalesced into a new gene pool in the Iberian Peninsula, being one of the largest genetic shifts of any European region. The various European kingdoms on the fringe of the region put aside their differences to eventually start their slow march south to reclaim their Iberian homeland. The last year of Moorish presence in 1492 coincidentally marked the same year that Christopher Columbus, who was Italian by the way, not Spanish, first sailed to the American continents, which kicked off the new wave of European exploration, discovery, and imperialism, which we touched on in the last video. Similarly to the situation of the original Iberian people, the Moorish population was not entirely expelled from Spain and Portugal, but many were allowed to stay if they converted to Catholicism and integrated with the emerging Spanish population.
So,
for this reason, the populations of Spain and Portugal today have overwhelmingly Western European DNA. However, on average, Spaniards and Portuguese have anywhere from 2 to 10% North African admixture, with those in the north having virtually no admixture, but increasing greatly the further south you travel in the peninsula. Many Iberians resemble other Europeans in appearance, while many others clearly have a bit more non-European admixture, but this doesn't make them any less European than other groups on the continent. The Iberian Peninsula today contains roughly 60 million people and is divided into the independent countries of Spain, which dominates in both land area and population, Portugal, which is a bit smaller yet still very influential, Andorra on the border with France, one of the few remaining microstates in Europe, and Gibraltar, which is a minuscule yet monumentally important territory which actually still belongs to the United Kingdom. It's pretty universally known that Spanish and Portuguese are both Latin-based languages, meaning that they're descended from the Old Latin language originally spoken in the Italian province of the Roman Empire, with other members of the Romance family being modern Italian, French, and Romanian. However, the linguistic and ethnic borders don't exactly correlate along modern political lines. On the west coast of Spain lies the region of Galicia, where the majority of the nearly 3 million residents speak Galician, a Romance language more closely related to Portuguese than to Spanish, with many linguists actually classifying it as a Portuguese dialect rather than a separate language. The Spanish language can be fairly confusing at times, as it has many dialects in both Spain and Latin America, with the differences in Latin American and European Spanish being akin to the differences between American and British English, and Spanish proper is known as Castilian. Not all people in Spain speak Castilian, though, with there being many large Romance languages that are regionally native to the country, with Asturian being in the northwest corner near Galicia and Aragonese along the border with France, although comparatively very few people still speak these as a first language. The largest minority language and people in Iberia today would have to be the Catalans, who, despite the Spanish government's best effort, largely still speak their original dialects of Catalan and Valencian, and have a strong sense of nationalism, with there being many rallies for independence in recent years. The Catalan inhabit the eastern coast of the peninsula, opposite that of the Portuguese and Galicians, as well as the Balearic Islands and a very small enclave on the Italian island of Sardinia. The only non-Italic language native to the peninsula would be the Basques, and strangely enough, no one really knows where they came from, although various theories posit a connection with the Celtic languages, or perhaps even a pre-Indo-European people group. And if you thought the Catalan people really wanted independence, well, the Basques are on a whole different level. On a tangent, although very little is known about this, it might surprise some people to know that a branch of the Romance or Italic language family was once widely spoken in the North African Maghreb, or modern countries of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. This language was probably a late form of Latin from the Roman Empire, most likely being closest to neighboring Portuguese or Spanish, or perhaps Sardinian, but unfortunately, following Islamic expansion around the year 700 AD, all traces of these Romance-speaking peoples were wiped off the face of the continent, being assimilated into the encroaching Arab wave. If not for this vanquish and assimilation, it is very likely that this African Latin could have evolved into a modern Romance language, and perhaps the people of the Maghreb would be more similar in culture to Western European groups like the French, Spanish, or Italians. The Canary Islands is one region of Spain that has a bit of a different genetic history than the rest of the country, which should be glaringly obvious when you look at its position being less than 100 miles off the coast of Africa, while being nearly 8 times that distance from mainland Spain. Even though the 2 million inhabitants of the Canary Islands today consider themselves an integral part of Spain, the original inhabitants of the island were of North African Berber origin, known as Guanches, who had inhabited the islands for over 2,000 years before the arrival of the Spanish. Because of their isolation from the rest of North Africa, the Guanches were still animistic as compared to neighboring Muslim Morocco, and the Spanish were able to conquer the islands fairly quickly, and Spanish settlers from mainland Europe soon began arriving in large numbers, and it wasn't long before the original Guanche people were completely assimilated into the Spanish culture. The modern Canarians today are probably the most swarthy Spanish people, with ethnic Canarians having anywhere from 10 to 40% native North African admixture. The other main island chains of Macaronesia, such as Madeira and the Azores, actually did not have a native population when Portugal discovered them. since they were a bit farther from the African coast, and it was extremely common for Portuguese and Spanish from this region to migrate to the American continents. The conquering and subjugation of Iberia by the Islamic Moorish forces was a defining event in Spanish and Portuguese history. It had a large effect on the language, culture, and even the genetics on the modern Spaniards and Portuguese, and as such had a large effect on all of the dozens of countries conquered by the two as well, such as Latin America and other regions of the planet. And for this reason is very relevant to hundreds of millions of people with any degree of Hispanic ancestry. The Reconquista was truly an impressive feat, and depending on which way you look at it, was either a very bright moment in European history or a sad chapter in Islamic history. Either way, the racial makeup and attitude of the Spanish and Portuguese people were forever altered by their history, and that makes them one of the most interesting people groups in Europe. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the Spanish and Portuguese people and the Reconquista of the Iberian Peninsula. As always, this has been Mason. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, quick announcement. I've made a second channel called Mason the Man. Yeah, creative name, I know. But on that channel, we're going to be discussing demography and geography. And
yeah, I wonder what they call it romance language for.
I don't know, but the Latin-based languages, I don't remember why it got classified as romance. I think just because of the sound of it.
Yeah.
They're a little like lighter and airier and easier to learn than like, you know, Arabic-based languages or Greek-based languages, I think.
Yeah, it's funny when you think of romance, you think it's I think it's something totally different. I'm thinking like their language romance. I
believe the romance languages might be a little more flowery and things.
Flowery, yeah. It's crazy.
Spanish and French and Italian are all considered.
Yeah. Well,
Pretty sure French is, yeah.
Yeah, French and Italian, yeah. I guess they consider like
in Spanish
the place for romance.
I don't know.
Not just a place for romance, but
I'm just saying those are the languages.
Yes, languages. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think of like when you take somebody over to dinner, like I'm taking this girl out to a romance dinner. It's gonna be so romantic. Mm-hmm. You know, you think of the language.
I think it does mean something similar, but for different reasons. If
comment down below, man. What do you think? What did they come up with romance language? I mean, what's the purpose behind it? Is it be like romantic, or that's what they just call a language, romance language? But yeah, definitely a great video, man. Mm-hmm. You know, very informative. And,
very interesting.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm just learning so much stuff, man. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and some of these people, they look like European. I mean, what they mix with European and, well, I guess some of the people from North Africa.
Well, I mean, he was, again, like anywhere, like you have a lot of mix of different, you know, cultures and different peoples. So yeah, like northern Spain, he was saying you look very European, although, like he said, just because you have, you know, some North African Berber in you doesn't mean you're not European. It just means like you have more of that ancestry.
Yeah, it is.
So,
yeah. Well, yeah, man. Thank you, Matthew May. Thank you for your requests and your continued support. Mm-hmm. Make sure to subscribe to Mason Man.
Yes.
But to go to the end of this video, if you want to support our channel, leave us a special video request. Check out the link to our Streamlabs. It's going to be in our description. And make sure to keep the videos under 12 minutes. Don't forget to subscribe.
And thumbs it up.
Turn on notification. It's your man, Maury B.
And Nicole.
We're going to catch you on the next with the awesome. Peace and love, baby.